Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at quite an unusual thing. This is the, I guess it's pronounced, it's either AXYTOYS or AXYTOYS. I've been saying Axy, but I'm just assuming I don't know. Maybe it's either one. This is part of their Dinosaur Battlefield line. Now, you guys know I don't review indie company products as a rule, because there could be perceived biases. I wouldn't do that, but you never know what somebody might accuse me of. Now, it's very arguable that somebody, a viewer or another person making figures or who knows who, could say, hey, anything you say bad about this indie company is simply so that when you do eventually launch your own, which you're taking forever to do, it'll make yours look better. And that you could do that. Someone could do that. I would never do that. I think you guys can trust me by now, but just in case, I have avoided that completely with a few exceptions. This is one of the exceptions. It's because the people making the figure contacted Big Bad Toy Store and they said, we want people to have a pre-release review of our product. Do you know anybody? Big Bad Toy Store said, we do. Anthony might want to do it. They asked me, I said, okay, well, if they're asking, then sure, I'll review it. And they contacted me and we got it set up. So I'm reviewing their product. I'm going to review it as it's a regular release. I mean, it's slightly pre-released. There will be some slight changes, but this is pretty much what you're going to be getting in the package. This is the red Tyrannosaurus Rex, the super deluxe version. It's 110 bucks. You can buy the naked version for, I think it's like 60 bucks, something like that. But I'm going to review it like a regular product. But you guys know it is an indie company, and so they don't have like the weight of Hasbro, for instance, behind them, or Bandai, or any of the big players. It's a small company, so you're aware of that, and you're aware that I'm still gonna say what's good or what's bad as if it's a regular release, not just trying to pull punches to be nice or anything like that. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and get them off the stand and take a closer look. Okay, real quick before we get to the figure itself, I do want to mention on the packaging they call him the Carnivorous King T-Rex Bloodblade, but the listing's on Big Bad Toy Store, and I'll put the link down there so you guys can look at these if you want to. Like, I'm not getting anything for this, but this way you can see what they have available. The listings just have different color versions of T-Rex guy number 1 or whatever. But this does call him the Carnivorous King T-Rex Bloodblade, and if you're interested in some lore, they do come with some pretty nicely printed little photo thing here. Lore cards. So that's for T-Rex Bloodblade. All right. Okay. Oh, I guess I can mention this. The packaging is not dissimilar to Storm Collectibles. We do have a little bit of a sleeve down here that pops off, but otherwise it's fairly similar to Storm, though I think the figure is less like Storm than you might have previously thought. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I mean, not directly, but I'll mention some things. Okay, so this guy. Here's what I'll do. I'll do a question of the day. This is a relevant question for indie figure producers. Do you guys, you audience members, collect things that aren't from an established IP? And if you do, is it just based on if it looks cool, or if it's a good action figure, or how do you decide what to buy if it's not from an established franchise that you are familiar with, like Marvel or DC or something like that? Okay, all right, that's the question. You guys can let me know. Let's do a height measurement. He stands, including his little crown thingy, big crown thingy, about 28 centimeters, give or take. And that's going to be about, well, a little over 11 inches, it looks like. I know it looks wrong on camera, but, well, maybe it looks okay. Camera looks like it's kind of lined up, actually. About 11 inches. So it's technically 1/12 scale, they say. And he's a big boy. And there's Darwin in an appropriate, very inappropriate height for this, but there you go. So that's Marvel Legends for 26 bucks. This guy's 110 bucks. No real comparison there to be made, but there you have it. Okay, so I want to do a quick overview of this guy with all of his gear on. This is everything, not counting his weapons. Okay, so I want to show you this, and then I'm going to strip him down so that I can actually get in there and do the articulation, because obviously with all of these doodads, he's got all kinds of things on him. You're not going to be doing as much posing, and if you are, it's going to be a pain in the ass because you have like tons. This guy comes with all kinds of little spiky things. You have to add most of the spikes yourself, and since it's photographed like that on the sale listing and the solicitation, I'm guessing that's how it's going to be when you get it too. But anyway, he's got lots of little doodads and dangly bits and things, so I do want to show it to you because it is incredibly impressive. I want to throw this out there right off the bat. I was not expecting this. I mean, I knew what they looked like from the photos, but I wasn't expecting a package as heavy as this one is, or a figure as big as this one is. And it's not the first time I've said that about a package. Okay, so this guy does have tons of things going on. There's a lot of cloth, some fur, and a lot of chain and metal hooks and things. So we have 2 dangly bits right here that hang from each of his shoulder pads. We do have the fur. I don't know what that's made out of, I can't say, but I'm sure it's not a real fur. But we do have the fur cape that hooks around, has a little hook on this side and on the other side into the shoulder pad as well. And we'll talk about the cape briefly. It has this top layer with the fur, like the furry fur. And then we have this bottom layer that looks more like, I don't know. It's another type of fur, I guess you would say. Not a fur expert, but it's a nice big long cape with a tattered bottom, very cool looking, and it is wired. Now, since it's just 2 wires on either side, or 1 wire on either side, they don't actually connect to anything, so they're just going to basically help with the droop of the cape. They're not going to do a ton, like a real windswept pose, probably not, but you do have that, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, the shoulder pads are removable. His helmet slash crown slash whatever you want to call it, you have 2 options. This is the one option. This isn't going to be, from what I understand, I talked to them a little bit. This is going to be at least slightly different the way this connects to the head, probably because it pops off a little bit too easily. But you can take this thing off if you want, which is like a Triceratops head, sort of. So you can take that off and then you just get the more basic crown. And then these don't really count as accessories, or not crown, but helmet. You can pop in some extra horns. I'm just going to set them in there quickly. They're not going to be pushed in all the way just now because we have a review to do, but there you go. So that's your other option for his helmet, which I kind of like. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so you do get the helmet. That comes off, and that has like a little rubber band strap. It's not really, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of rubber. It actually feels like neoprene. Strap that holds that onto his head. So you have that, you have the shoulder pads, you have the necklace, and this is with rope, made with rope, and it has a bunch of little dangly bits in there. There's just so much to look at. This is like a NECA figure mixed with a Storm figure, mixed with a jewelry store, and a pelt store, and a dinosaur store. Like, there's just all kinds of stuff going on here that I was not expecting. Okay, so let's move down onto the arm. We have these faux leather wristbands, and they have little belts on them, which are functional. The belts work just like regular human adult belts. Or, I mean, kid belts too, I guess. I don't know. Kids probably wear belts. But yeah, those belts actually function. You can take the arm pad off, and that has the plastic, metal, gauntlet type thing. So that's cool. You get that on both sides. Then down at the waist, you have 1 belt and then 1 set of fur, which is like a loincloth, and you get all these dangly bits you can add to it. I personally don't like the fur as much. I just don't. I mean, I guess if you're gonna buy a dinosaur thing, like, this fur is okay for them to be wearing, but it's just not. I like plastic. I don't like mixed media. The vinyl's okay. It's not really vinyl, but anyway, you can take the fur off separately if you want to, or you just have the belt with the pads and things. So many options. It's very, very cool that they did that. And then lastly, we have the leg armor, which is very similar to the forearm armor. It has 2 belts here and 2 belt buckles, and they just pop right off. The leg armor does come right off if you undo the belt. And I'll show you the main waist stuff has a big belt on there. And then the fur underneath just has a Velcro thing because that's underneath this buckle. So there's a whole lot going on here, and it's freaking cool. And that's just the stuff that comes on the figure. There are other accessories, which I'll do in a second, but that's a whole lot of stuff. It's really, really cool. You can still pose the figure. It doesn't actually inhibit too much of the articulation, not too much at all, really, but it's gonna be finicky and pain in the ass type stuff because you have lots of little things like this that could just unhook. And of course, if you wanted to, you could, close that hook with some needle nose or something, and you can do that. I'm not gonna do that because I'm reviewing it, but you do have lots of options, and it is gorgeous. It's so cool. If you like the way this looks, like, obviously it's a very particular type of thing. I'm guessing some people aren't into dinosaurs and fur and bones and stuff, but if you thought this looked cool in the photos, it is every bit as cool in person. And again, size-wise, it's quite large. It's a big honking action figure. So aesthetically speaking, I'm going to give this guy a 9.9 out of 10. And one of the reasons it's not a full 10 out of 10 aesthetically, we'll get to once I get all of his stuff stripped down. So I'm going to turn the camera off, and then I'll do that, and I'll turn it back on to get through the rest of the review. Okay, so I've got this guy completely naked now, and there was a ton of stuff to remove from him. So I'll put a photo up there so you can see exactly what I had to do to get him to this naked state. A lot of stuff in the package. I'm not counting that stuff as accessories because that goes on his body as his main clothing. Of course, it's all removable, so you can count it if you want to. But what I'm going to do for accessories is count the things that are not actually part of his clothing. So you don't have any interchangeable heads or anything like that, just the helmet. But for hands, you do get the one pointing finger hand and the open hand that come out in the package. Then you get a gripping hand for either side, so that's pretty cool. The PVC is not too tight to get his hand around his weapons. You get 3 different weapons, and the cool thing about these is they all have a peg hole in the bottom, and then you get a little metal rod, and you can connect these together to make various combinations of weapons, so they can be used individually or with the metal rod to make them bigger, and that's pretty cool. So there's some really nice paintwork on there. You do get the 2 little horns that go on his helmet if you want to remove the big Triceratops thing. And then there are actually 2 little horns that I have not figured out what they go to. Maybe they're extras of some sort. I don't know. You can peg them into the bottom of the weapons if you want to, just so that you don't have an empty hole. But that's it for the accessories, other than all of the clothing and everything that you already saw. So I'm going to say for accessories, I don't know, 10 out of 10. No, I'll go 9.5 out of 10 just because he could have some fists. Some fists would be nice, but otherwise, like, it's a ton of stuff, so I'm okay with that. Okay, now I wanted to mention, because I said on the aesthetic it wasn't a perfect rating, and that's simply because the paints could be a little bit better. There are some issues here and there. Nothing major. Obviously, there's a lot of good paintwork on here, but if you look at his head, like the eyes and the sculpting is wonderful. I love the texture and everything. That's great. The eyes are wonderful. Teeth could be a little bit cleaner. I don't mean cleaner as in not yellow. I just mean like the paint job. There's a lot of yellow at the top of the tooth, and then it's kind of clean underneath that. If I can get it to focus on the right thing, there you go. Yeah, it's not perfect. And then things like on the tail, it's minor stuff, of course, but the red lines don't, the paintwork doesn't really match anything on the figure. It's going over both of the, whatever you want to call those, scoots or shoots or whatever you call it on an alligator. I don't know what you would call that on this. But like, yeah, there's little imperfections here and there, so it's not a perfect paint job. And you do have the issue that you often have. We had it with Purunga from Bandai. The joints obviously match one part of the figure, and so that looks okay. But if you do that, it looks goofy. And then same thing with the hand going to the forearm. You have that kind of issue with Yoshi, with Purunga, any kind of dinosaur lizard thing, you always run into that. Same thing with the legs bumping up into the straight pink right there. You know, it's just inconsistent throughout. So it's not a perfect rating, of course, but it does look really good. And the figure is sculpted well. A lot of nice details on there. Man, I love the way they did the eyes. Like, it's nothing crazy. It just looks really good. It's a good paint job and really nice sculpt work all the way around. A little bit of a gloss finish. Love that. Looks really, really good. So yeah, the sculpt on this guy is nice. You can see they weren't going for like the cosplay look. Really just a good aesthetic all the way around. All the muscle groups are there where they should be. I like it. I think it looks really, really good. And if I could just suggest one thing, maybe because they're going to have stuff in the future, of course. Guys, me personally, and maybe some people out there in the audience, you guys can chime in. The bipedal humanoid look is fine. It's really cool with the dinosaur aesthetic. I like it. I would like to see this exact same figure, but from the legs down, go with the digitigrade legs. So we have that extra little bend to them, and I think that would be awesome and make for a taller figure, and just to give you another look, another thing to do without changing anything but the lower legs. Something to consider if you're looking for input. I would like that personally a whole bunch. So yeah, aesthetically it's wonderful, like that a whole bunch. Already talked about aesthetics and accessories. Let's talk about the articulation. So first thing we can talk about is the head. I did mention that the jaw opens and closes. It looks nice as it's doing it. So as you can see, there's no neck showing through. There's good sculpt work and paint work all the way around. And then you can close the jaw up and it still looks pretty good, pretty solid, no problems there. Now the head articulation, it is just a big ball peg from this guy going into here. But you don't have a ton of range, there's just not a lot of clearance. I think because they didn't have enough room to bury a big ball peg into the head. So it's a lot more limited than I would have guessed. I think they probably could have figured out a way to do that. Maybe hollow this out a little bit more, push the peg in farther and make it smaller, but because it's hollow, you probably get more range. But either way, you can move the head around a decent amount, not a ton. But then you get another ball peg. This is kind of a floating piece. You get another ball peg that goes into here. So let's see what kind of range we can get out of that. Okay, well, if you push really hard, that happens. So, as you can see, you technically did a good job with the balls. Nice big balls, but this ball is so far into the body, you just lose all the range. So, that's a problem, obviously. Me ripping it off isn't a problem, I don't care about that. So it's actually a double ball peg. I thought there was a fixed piece in between, which I guess technically there is, but... Okay, so having it be a double ball peg where the bottom ball doesn't work that well and the top ball doesn't really work that well as a result of this piece. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, okay, so not what I thought completely at all. All right, there's a double ball peg in here, single ball in here with a female end. So that's an interesting combo. In theory, it's pretty good. I think the problem they're having is, because you have decent range technically on this joint right here, I think the problem they're having is this piece is limiting this joint up here. Yeah, there's just no place for it. Okay, so that piece is limiting that. And then this ball peg, the bottom one, is just way too far in there. So this one, like the ball itself is almost bumping into, or it is bumping into the socket. So that's a little bit weird. So definitely less range than you're gonna like. Let's see if I can do it without ripping the whole thing off. I would have liked to see a lot more finesse in that neck, but let's see what we can do. So he does look down. All right, that's fine. Can he look up? That's as far up as it's gonna go without it popping off. So more limitation than I was expecting, or than I would like. Leaning side to side. I think that's about the max, which is gonna be enough. It's not like it's severely limited, but it is pretty limited considering, given the design of the neck, I would have guessed for more range. So that's a bit of a bummer. All right, for the shoulders, it's not a Storm figure, guys, by the way. It doesn't have the skeleton setup. This is closer to like a McFarlane figure where you just have the big ball peg in there, and this is just a floating cap, which is similar to Storm, but this is not like a big squishy piece. This is a shell, two shells put together. So you do get some range out of that shoulder. Not a ton for the inner piece. It's a lot like the McFarlane figures. You get a little bit of wiggle up and down, not a ton. It's better than nothing. There's definitely nothing wrong with it, especially when you have this kind of giant shoulder and big upper body. It works fine. Just, you know, you're not getting a ton of butterfly out of that. But that's okay. And then for the shoulder itself, standard ball hinge. Better than horizontal, so that's really good. You get your full rotation there. That's fine. If this gets out of whack like that, you can just spin it around. Like I said, it's completely free floating. Speaking of free floating, the bicep is not actually connected to anything. This is like a figure arts figure where this joint, the elbow joint, goes up into the shoulder. So you have your single jointed elbow there. Just about 90 degrees, nothing crazy going on. Then you get your bicep swivel out of that, and of course you can just rotate this around. Something in there as you want to. So that works fine. Not the craziest range, but he's a bulky dude, so I think that's all right. And then the wrists, they did a ball hinge, which is pretty much your standard fare. That's a good call, good range. I like that. For the torso, I think it's just a single. You can kind of see in there. Well, should I do it? I don't want to. Oh, I don't have to. Okay, it's a double ball peg. I was able to just kind of stretch it apart. So it's a double ball peg. You can see the one socket up there, and then one down in there. You don't have to do this, of course. I pushed this all the way down, and I pulled it all the way back. So you do get some gapping if you try, but let's see what the range is like. All right, so it leans forward pretty well. All right, and leaning back. That's as far as it leans back. All right, so it doesn't lean back all that far, and you do get some serious gapping pretty quickly. I'm having trouble manipulating that double ball peg the way I think I would be able to. It doesn't seem to want to go, so I'm not sure what's keeping it. Maybe there's some blockage here and there, but you do get some decent range out of it. Not a ton, but probably enough. Side to side will work. And then down here, all right, this one is just a single. All right, this one is just a single down here. I don't know if you can see in there. You probably can't. This is hollow, so that's where you're getting your range out of that lower ball peg. Does pose some issues, no pun intended, for gapping, but you get a little bit of extra range, side to side, of course, and you get your rotation out of either joint. so far the joints are all pretty good. Nothing particularly loose, nothing particularly tight. It feels pretty good. Nothing has stood out to me as being a problem yet. We'll see about the hips. I'm a little concerned, but maybe they're going to be fine. So the hips, just a big old ball peg in there. All right, so there's a lot of meat here. I'm concerned that that's going to give us limited range, but we should be able to swivel just the textured part. So yeah, that'll work. So you can just swivel around this. This is just going to hold the joint together, basically. So how about range? This is a soft piece, by the way, so that's good. Still not very much range going forward. The thighs don't have much clearance. Going back, we get very little. Going out to the side, better than 45, I'll take it. It does pucker this. So be aware of that. When these guys are naked, they do have a little bit more gapping than you might like in the torso. Ooh, remind me before the video is over, I want to mention something. I know you guys can't remind me, but hopefully I remember. I just noticed it and I really want to comment on it. Okay, but it's not articulation. So the hips are okay. They do feel too loose. They're not floppy, but they could be a little bit tighter. I would be a little bit concerned about that if he didn't have a tail. So let's talk about the tail. The tail connects on a square peg back here, and then there's a hinge inside. You're not probably going to be able to see it. Maybe you can. There's a hinge that lets it do this. I don't think that's necessary at all. I mean, it doesn't add anything, and it's ugly. So, like I said, I'm going to review this as I would be reviewing any other figure since they asked. It comes with good and bad. Some of its opinion, of course. If you like this, then good. That's fine, but it doesn't offer enough to me, and it's completely floppy. So, as far as I can tell, that's just objectively bad. It doesn't work. The tail is bendy, technically, but I think the wire stops like right here, and it's very thick, so it's practically not bendy. It stops basically on the straight part. So you can do some, but basically none. Yeah, it's definitely a bendy tail. You can see I got a little bit of wiggle to it, but the bottom half doesn't really do much, or bottom chunk. So yeah, this is gonna basically just be a tripod, and so you don't have to worry about the hips as much. But yeah, he does have loose hips and a weird tail joint. All right, for the knees. Okay. Wow, okay, really good, really good range on the knees. So they did go pinless. So these joints at the top and bottom, this will peg into the thigh inside. It's basically a figure arts knee, really, and it works nicely. It's a nice stiff joint with nothing sticking, so that's good. I like that. And then for the ankles, it's your standard ankle. Really good range forward, really good range back. Ankle rocker is solid. That's all good and well. And then lastly, we have some tootsies, some tootsie hinges. So you get a hinge on every single toe. They painted it, but it's hard plastic, so it probably won't stick. And you get rotation. I don't know how much you're going to want that rotation, but having the toes articulated is pretty cool. And they're not loose. They're pretty nice joints. So I like it. So, okay, articulation. Final rating for the articulation. There are some issues for sure. Definitely some things that can be finessed, and they probably will be as the line continues. I'm guessing that is the nature of things. But overall, it's solid. The articulation, like I said, it does leave some to be desired, but for a big chunky guy like this, I'm going to say it's reasonable. I'm going to give it a, I don't know, 8. Arms work, like the joint quality is good. That's the thing, like I have to consider that too. Some of the joints don't have the range they could have, but quality is nice. No stuck joints, only a little bit of looseness, and I don't think it's a fatal flaw. Yeah, I'm going to say 8. For a chunky guy like this, it's pretty good. Definitely could be better though. The neck and torso easily could be better. Okay, now the thing I said I wanted to mention for you guys, and I reminded myself because none of you said it, just sculpt-wise, just as an aside, because I don't have anything in front of me to show you on a regular basis, one of the things that makes Hasbro's figures look so weird, why am I talking about Hasbro? Just because, this is a good example, is they don't separate the pecs from like the ribs, from the lats and the serratus muscles. It's all just one sheet of meat. Here's a good example. I mean, it's Darwin, so he doesn't have much going on there, but it's all one sheet of meat and it doesn't look right. The pecs need to be in front of everything else. Look how much extra thickness there is on this pec right here. How much farther ahead it is than right here. Like there should be a big divot underneath the pecs over here. Even though they should technically connect over to the bicep, it's an action figure. This is necessary to make a figure look appropriate when it has pectoral muscles. And they did a really good job with that. This guy has a great aesthetic, if you ask me. Okay, so now it's time for the final verdict. This became a really long review, and I'm curious how people are going to react to me reviewing an indie thing. But they asked for it, so here it is. Okay, so I'm gonna give this guy a final rating of it's easily worth the money, objectively. Size, accessories, all of the added parts for the clothing and whatnot. It is painted everywhere. It's not a perfect paint job, but it's there, so it's easily worth the money technically. And then my rating is going to be 9 out of 10. It's a solid release. That price of 110 bucks for everything you get in the package, and there's a ton of stuff in the package, and you get this big honking figure with all of the articulation you could really want for somebody this bulky. Yeah, it's a good buy. If you're into the aesthetic, you're into the dinosaur humanoids wearing armor and fur and stuff, like it's a very specific thing, so like it's kind of hard to compare this against other things. You don't have a lot out there that's just like this, but as far as I can tell, it's worth it. They did a really good job. I did notice maybe they could have made the shoulders a little chunkier front to back, but that probably, well, they have the shoulder pads, that's right, so the shoulder pads are going to be on there. So yeah, anyway, yeah, I really like this. I might be into this line, or maybe I'll work with them in the future for some more reviews or something, and who knows, maybe I'll have them produce my action figure line when I need it done. Alright, so there it is. Yeah, it's a good figure, and if you're into this sort of thing, you should have some confidence that the product is going to be worth the money, because I know this guy's not out yet. They do have some other figures that have released already, so I'm guessing some of you have some experience with them, but if you didn't, now you do. Very cool line, so thanks to them for sending it, and there you go. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down, and if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel, so make sure you come back for all of that, and in the meantime, keep collecting.